And good morning. Yes, we're back, and it is 7:07 a.m. It is 23 cold degrees as we're moving on. And as promised, we have City Councilman Steve Massengale in the studio with us. And good morning, Steve.
Good morning, guys.
Where's your heavy coat, man?
Well, I have one in my car, but I've got my sweater, my casual sweater on this morning. So I got to be warm in these cold days, so you got to dress for it.
Yeah, you're dressed typically for Lubbock. You know, we don't have a lot of heavy coats.
No, but you're glad
we don't wear them. Even if we do.
You're glad to have one when it's cold. So
that's the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, so the council, did you guys met last night?
We did. We had a council meeting. That, you go ahead, y'all. I can describe it maybe the way y'all described it as I walked in here this morning. It was, you said boring. I'll say uneventful. But we did have a council meeting last night.
You had a lot of, let's see, the biggest thing I saw were changing codes for certain areas.
Well, we had 10 hearings.
Variances and whatnot.
We had 10 hearings on planning last night. And, Growing City is going to have more has more and more planning and zoning activity all the time. Let me say one thing about that is we're in the middle of, we've got a citizen-led committee to look at our comprehensive land use plan. I'll remind everybody that we haven't changed our comprehensive land use plan since the 1980s. That tells us where we want commercial and how we want to protect residential and how things look and how our city's going to look moving forward. And another example to better understand that is we make exceptions to the land use plan all the time because we find that the way things were done back then doesn't work for now. For example, the shopping center with Cabela's in it is contrary to the current land use plan. And how nice is that shopping center? And the major point on that shopping center is commercial was addressed by the developer differently because they get the traffic off the street. And so that's just one example of how things will look differently and change as our community begins to grow. So that's why you see so many of those planning cases last night. We're going to have more and more of those.
Yeah, and then another, I think there were a couple restaurants that needed liquor licenses that were within 300 feet of whatever. And
we did,
and a couple things like that. But I mean, nothing that's probably not standard for a normal city council, right?
No, we talked about a couple of things that we can talk about today in an executive session. We continue to talk about our public safety facility plan. And one thing that doesn't have a whole lot of sizzle to it, but we're discussing as a council right now is what's called council rules. And the interesting thing about that is that's how a council I wouldn't say polices themselves, but monitors themselves and decides how to conduct business. For example, when we might have meetings, how many council people does it take to put an item on the agenda? Things like that, and also rules that remind us that in open meetings, how we conduct ourselves on our electronic devices. Because, for example, Dave, if you and I sit on the council together, when we're broken out into open meeting, you and I don't need to be texting each other on how to decide on one certain item, because when we're in open meeting, we have an obligation to discuss that in front of the public. So, again, not a whole lot of sizzle to those things, but those are the things we discussed last night.
Yeah, it's just kind of housekeeping things. Sounds like more than.
Well, what you got is a document that's over 100 pages long. So as councils were elected every 2 years, like we were talking about off air, and they're like, well, why do we do things this way? Well, we don't have to do things that way. The law allows us to change this, so we just keep adding to the rule book. Well, the mayor appointed a committee from the council that worked with staff, and we've reduced that from 100 pages to 6. There's a lot of rules that have been added that were contrary to existing rules. It was just kind of a mess, and so there's been a cleanup on that. And we haven't voted or decided on that. That's a work in progress, but I think that's probably something you can see come out in the public next year sometime.
Now, you commented about the land use plan hasn't been revised since the 80s, and what the thought that comes to my mind, does it need to be revised?
It does.
I mean, what did they do in the 80s that is not relevant today?
Well, to my prior example, we in the 80s, we designed everything around 10-acre corners that were commercial. So you think about the way our grid system is laid out, and every corner has a concentration of commercial, and that's not the way we do things. And then what we did is you'll see garden offices buffer between, sometimes as we've developed south, between heavy traffic and residential, or between commercial and residential. And so there's just new ways of doing things
that we think are better.
We do.
Than
We have a consultant. I know that's a bad word sometimes, but the city hired a consultant. This is not a cheap process, but it's something we need to do, especially in light of Loop 88. There's a tremendous amount of planning activity. There's a lot of very active developers around Loop 88. When you look at that corridor, I mean, it is just getting ready to bust.
Listen, as fast as this city is growing, I was reminded once again, we went out to a Christmas party for Ambucks out of Milwaukee, and I'm driving home to near the Loop in Indiana, and I'm thinking I'm driving, and I'm still not home.
Sure.
And it just reminded me about how this city is growing like I've just never seen it before. We're going to need Loop 88 here probably before we thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think the construction, I can't remember if it's 20 or 21, but they will start construction by then. So
yeah,
it's a big deal, and it's interesting to look at the maps that overlay. Like, we can look at a Google map and we have an overlay of Loop 88, and it's just kind of interesting to see that major thoroughfare that looks like another loop already laid over that, and you can see how the things it's going to take out. And we were looking at it last night in regards to substations on, where do we want to make sure that how do we make the best decisions so that we place police substations as the city grows.
Right.
And so it was interesting to look at how that laid out.
Yeah.
So, y'all, as far as substations, y'all are looking at police headquarters and 3 substations at this time. Is that still correct?
So when we talk about public safety facilities plan, it encompasses several facilities. One is a downtown but smaller headquarters than we currently have. Decentralization will allow us to have a smaller headquarters building. The identified location for that is across the street to the south from the Mahon Library, land the city already owns. Then 3 substations, one east, one north, one south. We have what we think is land for the one on the east, but we're going to have to acquire land in the north and the south, and that's why we were talking about that yesterday in our executive session. The last piece of that is a police property room, which would probably incorporate a crime lab, and that would be built at the old Animal Services site, which is out on the Municipal Hill. We would remove the old Animal Services building and put property warehouse there. That's been an ongoing process with council for several months, all of this year, and really started this time last year. You'll probably see lots of talk and lots of activity a week from Monday. Our next meeting is a week from Monday to try to work around the Christmas holiday. So on Monday the 18th will be our last council meeting of the year, and that will be one that the council will discuss. And my guess is likely vote on how to fund the $60 million that will be associated with that project.
And how do we do that?
How do we fund it? Well, there's a couple of options.
That's the big question, isn't it?
Sure. There is, and the council split on this. I don't mind talking about that. The council has the authority to raise the tax rate to fund $60 million of certificates of obligations. The other option is to call an election and include the voters in the process. It costs the same. It's a 3-cent tax increase to everybody. It funds the same. The way we would do that, whether it's COs or GOs, again, COs are voted on by the council. GOs are the voters participate in that one. We would probably roll that out so you really wouldn't see tax impact till not even all the 3 pennies in 1819, and then you'd probably see more in 1920.
Yeah. So a question as far as
let's take a break here. 7:17. We'll take a quick break and then come back and talk more with Councilman Steve Massengale. News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM. We are KFYO Mornings. Dave King, Matt Martin, right here on your radio, 723 AM and 23 23, pretty chilly degrees out there. Talking with City Councilman Steve Massengale. And, boy, one thing, you should have been with us yesterday when we were talking about the storm water lawsuit that's going through.
Did you get any interest in that?
Yes, we did. We had several callers and several texters.
If we're going to move on to stormwater, as far as stormwater is concerned, how does the city collect the money on that?
Through the utility bill.
Well, I just mean, how do they decide who pays how much?
Well, that was decided, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And when you look at that, there's a distribution. And keep in mind, we've got an amount of debt, and as a community, we have to pay that debt. And so when you add up all those collections, that's what the debt payment is. Because we've really built out mode. We've got one project going on now that we actually got an interest-free loan for from the water board. But so when you take that pot, the pot never changes. I've heard a balloon example I've used, and you divide that between residential and commercial. And when you look at modifying that, there's winners and losers every time. So, and this council has discussed it, and I think we've decided there's not an upside to playing with those rates right now. I'm one of those business owners that pays those high rates. I get it. I pay it on the residential side too. When you look at the investment we made in stormwater, I remember the 80s. I was here in the 80s. I remember the dumpsters floating around Leroy Elmore Park. I remember Quaker being impassable. Those things don't happen now. Our investment in stormwater works. I don't think anyone can argue that. The other good thing about it is the debt is soon to roll off, and soon in the financing world, I guess, would be 2021. I guess that will give the council the opportunity to reevaluate and hopefully decrease some of those rates.
Okay, and so again, as far as I'm trying to understand, a lot of people have complaints about how you decide who to charge how much. What exactly? How does that work?
Right now, it's based on the impervious area.
Right.
So it's that area on your property that water runs off of.
So if I'm a homeowner, is it still that way? So in other words, if I have a driveway instead of grass, does that mean I'm going to get charged more versus somebody who has grass, or is that only for business owners?
Well, they make a decision based on the satellite. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know the details of how we're doing it exactly on the residential side, but they take a picture, they use satellite imagery and make a decision based on that, on what the impervious area is, and
so what, $690 that's the maximum? Is that what
on the commercial side? Yeah,
$690. So they basically use the satellite to measure how many square feet you have in parking lot, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So it could go up to the maximum if you were Walmart or Target or the mall,
or you could be less. I have businesses that fall into both categories. I had to make limited comments about stormwater today because we are in litigation, and I know that everybody is. I know this is top of mind because of the trial yesterday, but I think soon as in a couple of years, there's some opportunity we can do some things with stormwater rates.
So as far as the litigation concerned, I know you can't talk about the litigation, but do you have any idea? Have they said anything about when they expect the summary judgment on that?
We don't have any idea.
Okay, and is it just the judge? Is he just thinking over what has happened, or the judge is the one that comes out with the summary judgment on that?
Yeah. Again, I don't have any idea what he's thinking on that.
Okay. Well, we could talk. Where were we talking? Well, you were going to ask something, Matt.
Well, I was actually talking. We were talking about the police department and the substations. Well, I've got a couple minutes. Anyway, we got the substations. This is a quick question. I swear, this is a quick question.
I'll give you a quick answer.
So, the substations are going to be spread out throughout Lubbock. Do we have any plans? If Lubbock continues to grow, have we thought about where other substations could go? Is this, or is it just the 4 that we're looking at right now?
Great question. I think as Lubbock continues to grow on the current plan, we would probably the 4th might be west.
Okay.
Very good.
See, there you go. I told you it was a quick question last time, and you just
I told you I'd
not-
give you a quick
had,
answer.
You
All right.
had to stop me.
Okay,
in the middle.
are
All
we?
right.
Do we have any more to talk about, or are we done? What? Well, we better make a decision here pretty quick. We got 10 seconds. We'll come back with more after this. News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM. We are KFYO Mornings. Dave King, Matt Martin here. 7:35 right now, and 23 degrees. And Councilman Steve Massengale still with us this morning.
Real quickly, one of the big things, I know that you're kind of heading up the project of downtown, the Citizens Tower.
Mm-hmm.
How's that coming along, and are we on budget, everything working like it should?
Yeah, that's a great question. As a matter of fact, we worked on a piece last night on Citizens Tower. Citizens Tower is under construction. If you pay attention, we've done some demolition over there in the past couple of weeks. There's part of that northern building that was supposed to come down. It's gone. They've still got to haul it off. If you look on the east side, we've the old wall that covered up the existing fire escape from the bank is gone, and they're demoing that. So if you drive by, you can literally see in the entire east side of the inside of the building right now.
Straight through.
Yeah, we approved an item last night to save about $100,000 on the project. Has to do with some of the upper levels, and we look at savings on that project every couple of weeks right now. The staff brings us opportunities to save money. So yes, it is in budget. By the way, that project has always been in budget, but it is underway. We plan to get the keys to that building and move in 2019.
So, and that seems like a while, I guess, but I mean, you're looking at a year and a half.
Generally 18 months is construction time, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a nice facility when they're through with it.
It will be. You know, it's
something that Lubbock will be proud of.
It will be. It will be a catalyst project for downtown.
Absolutely.
And our downtown is there's so much activity. I mean, it would take more than one show to talk about what's going on in downtown right now. It's just some great things. We're seeing businesses move back down there. You know, there's the hotel project that's just west of Wells Fargo closed, and if you know that parking lot that's west of Wells Fargo that we've done some utility work on. If you went over, remember where you used to park if you went to the Lubbock Club, that wet big west.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's about to be a all hotel.
Wow.
And that you should see that construction start soon. So.
Okay. Yeah, but that's my pet thing is downtown. I want to see downtown come back to life, and it does make me feel good when I go down there and I see all the activity that we're going. So is this the hotel that we're talking about in the
this is not the
with the
convention center hotel. And you'll see.
You know who's building it?
This is the Valencia Group. You can Google them. They do these themed hotels. Ours is going to have a cotton theme. I think maybe it's going to resemble a cotton gin. And it's a destination.
Well, that doesn't sound very good.
It's a themed. I think it's going to be a cool deal.
It'll match.
It'll
match
themed
Lubbock.
destination hotel. I think you're going to see families come stay there when they visit their kids at Tech.
Wow.
It's a cool deal. It's going to really add to downtown. It's going to be something you can be proud of. To your point about downtown is your deal. I mean, you're going to see some of these projects that are going to come up. We continue to see interest in. It looks like the student housing developers are jumping queue and coming downtown, and so we continue to see interest in properties downtown to build more student housing.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that catalyst has finally started with Rager. All the stuff that he's done, the stuff the city's doing, I think maybe it is beginning to roll, don't you?
It is. I say it's simmering right now. Give it 24 months, downtown's going to be at a good rolling boil. Buddy Holly Hall coming out of the ground. The Convention Center Hotel will be come back up in discussions with the council next year. You'll hear that talked about. We should see.
So that's not a done deal then.
It's not a done deal. The legislation was taken care of in the in the session this year. We still have to go through some studies and determine if what's the right way to configure that hotel, and if the tax that we'll recoup will pay for the things we need to pay for on the public end. So you'll hear those discussions this next year.
And see there, Matt. Now Matt's big thing is he wants to see private dollars in downtown, right?
And there will be significant private dollars on that convention center hotel, but there's some public dollars, as we've discussed. I know we've talked about that on your show before.
So do you know how big that hotel is going to be?
Well, we're going through the process right now.
No, I mean the
the Valencia?
The Valencia hotel.
I bet I've been told and I've forgotten.
But is it?
It's a big hotel.
Oh,
it'll take up that
interesting.
entire area. I understand it's going to have a large pool, but it'll be multiple floors, restaurant, bar. It'd be nice.
Well, fantastic. We are just about out of time. I think we've about covered all the topics, have we not?
Pretty much.
Anything that you want to end with?
No, I would tell everybody Merry Christmas, and if you're traveling, travel safe. If I don't see you before then, and looking forward to a great year in 2018 with the City of Lubbock.
Well, ditto. It is 7:41. Thank you, Councilman Steve Massengale, and we will return with more in a moment.